Okay, part two. Um, so where we're up to, Amelia Bloomer has somehow ended up giving her name to this outfit called the Freedom Suit, or Freedom Clothing, which we would call today trousers, but back then they were also called pantaloons, which is obviously where you get pants from. And like I said, this is all part of something called the dress reform movement. And it's very closely linked to sort of the suffrage movement and women wanting the vote and independence. Because I think at this time, women couldn't own property, or before this at least, women couldn't own property. They were basically property of their husbands or their family. And yet they were, involved in politics, and they wanted to have equal rights to men. Some women were working. I can't remember which one it is, but someone that's really important in the movement. I can't believe I've forgotten her name. But basically, she was inspired to join this movement and to get involved because she was a teacher and she loved it. And then she found out that her male counterparts were earning way more than her, but she was doing the same job as them. Does this sound familiar? So this movement was really gaining a lot of members and was really starting to happen. And the sort of the dress reform movement, which was also called the rational dress movement, was a big part of this. And it was more to do with so rational dress was women saying, like, we want clothes that are practical and allow us to move, like give us freedom. But of course, that's dangerous, because if women can move around practically and have that freedom, what else will they want freedom with? They'll start getting loose morals, and maybe they won't want to have babies anymore, and they won't want to marry men anymore and look after them if they are given this freedom which is linked back to their dress. So it's kind of mad to think like how it's all interlinked, and what women had to argue for and fight for, that we just take for granted now. Like, we can choose if we want to wear restrictive clothing or not. And so yeah, the dress reform movement was political, but it was also just practical. So unfortunately, you're looking at someone like Amelia Bloomer, and they had Bloomer balls and all sorts. It's absolutely fabulous. But they realised that the press and the outrage over their clothes was taking focus away from their political message. So, along with other things, they started to take a step back from that and dress more traditionally, so that people would hopefully take them more seriously, which is such a shame that they even had to think like that. But again, sound familiar? You've also got to bear in mind, so the other things that influence this is, one, the invention of the crinoline, which was a hoop skirt. So it was like a frame, a hoop frame, which basically replaced all the petticoats, but it was really light, so you could still have the traditional shape of the dress going over the top, but you weren't carrying all this weight hanging off you. It was just like a big light net, like mesh underneath, which carried the skirt and kept its shape, but you could move a lot more easily because you weren't your legs weren't surrounded by all these skirts underneath. That had its own dangers, but again, we'll get into that another time. But you've also got, because this was considered so dangerous that women were wearing trousers, some US cities from like the 1860s onwards, and even this was still a thing till like the 1950s, they passed laws making it illegal for, I will quote this, it was illegal for someone to appear in public in a dress not belonging to his or her sex. So basically, if obviously this affected the trans community, what I suppose back then it was referred to as like cross-dressing. So obviously it affected men who wanted to wear or identified as women and wanted to wear clothes that represented that. Obviously it affected them, but for this episode, you know, what we're talking about, it affected women who wanted to wear trousers because they were considered such masculine items. That was men's dress, and a woman trying to wear that was doing something illegal. They were saying that like they were trying to pass themselves off as someone that they weren't. So you could literally get arrested for this, for wearing trousers. But yeah, like, so just think this carried on until the 1950s. It's absolutely insane. However, you then get the bike craze in the 1890s, and we'll look at that in the next episode.